Thank you and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, May 18th meeting of the Milton Select Board. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act, signed by Governor Baker on June 16, 2021, includes an extension of the remote meeting provisions. And under its provisions, all votes by the Select Board will be taken by roll call. My name is Arthur Doyle. I'm serving as chair. May I introduce the members of the board. Mr. Zulus.
Mike Zulus, vice chair.
Richard Wells, secretary.
Roxanne Musto, member.
Thank you very much. May I ask the board to, I'm sorry, Anne Marie and Lynn, let's introduce the two of you as well.
Anne Marie Fagan, Town Administrator.
Linda Abley, Executive Assistant to the Select Board.
And is there anybody hiding in the background that we haven't acknowledged?
No.
Let's please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Sean will post the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 4 is the town meeting update. I'll briefly review that and see if anybody wants to ask any questions or add to it. Our town meeting has been rescheduled to June 6, 2022 by Zoom due to an increase in COVID-19 cases. The meeting dates, all of which will begin at 7:30 p.m. June 6, June 7, June 9, June 13, and June 14. Mr. Zulus, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to note that item 3 is public comment. You might want to give the opportunity for public comment.
We will do that. Thank you. Before we do so, and thank you for that oversight on the agenda. Sometimes I read too fast. Any further information on the town meeting rescheduled dates? Hearing none, we will go to public comment and invite anyone who wishes to participate through public comment to do so. I'm looking in the attendees. I do not see any hands raised. We had one person who indicated that they did wish to speak in public comment. Linda Lee Sheridan is scheduled to speak next. She's on the agenda as such. We won't do that under public comment.
She is there, Mr. Chair. I see her in that.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Not seeing any other hands for public comment. We'll go to item number 5, a discussion by Linda Lee Sheridan of the Milton Music Festival and Fireworks. Linda Lee, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for welcoming me tonight. I'm Linda Lee Sheridan, town meeting member, precinct 9. I live on Clifton Road. I want to begin by welcoming Erin and Roxanne, even though Erin isn't here just yet, to the select board meeting. And yes, I'm here for my annual conversation about Milton Music Fest and Fireworks. We're thrilled to again be offering it this year. We're back on June 25th for the Milton Music Fest and Fireworks, and Celtic Sunday will be on Sunday, June 26th. Both of these events are on Hutchinson Field, overlooking the gorgeous Boston skyline. It's just such a great venue to have this event. The festivities will begin at 5 p.m. on Saturday. And again, we're going to welcome back. We missed our giant sandbox last year, but due to COVID, we were worried about having that. And of course, my phone's ringing right now. I'm sorry. And so we will have the giant sandbox. We're going to have a giant water slide and bouncy house for kids. Cornhole was a really big draw last year for families. And our fruit center truck will be on hand again with goodies and a small slide for little ones. The music will kick off at 6:30 p.m. with Pauline Wells and her band, followed by Booty Vortex, which is a return performer and a huge crowd favorite. They will be on stage from 8 to 9:30 p.m. And they will be followed by the main event, the fireworks. Last year saw our biggest crowd yet, with thousands present to see this spectacular display. And I think I heard from more people last year than I ever had before about just how really amazing the fireworks are. So it's an event you won't want to miss that day. And then the next day, Celtic Sunday begins at noon. This is really Richard Wells's baby. He runs this day. The headliner will be Celtic Cross from New York City. And we will again have many familiar and beloved Irish bands, Feeney and Sons, Aaron's Melody, Sean and Carolyn Brennan, and the Skiffs, Carrick's Fancy, and new this year, the Strawberry Hill Band. We're also going to welcome a tiny little pub that will be the first time on Hutchinson Field, and we're excited to have that there. The food trucks and beer and wine trucks will be on site both days, and no outside beverages are permitted on the field. I do need to say that. Again, we will have parking at LaSalle and Fontbonne with free shuttle buses right up to the field, so parking is very easy. And I want to say that, as you can tell, this is an action-packed event. We have a lot to do setting up this stage and planning all these festivities, but we are a very small group of volunteers. Only 6 people plan and run this event. And so we're asking this year for some volunteers to help during the weekend and into Monday. We're in the process of creating an online sign up for jobs involved with setting up the field or activities on Friday and Saturday, or breaking down everything on Monday. And we also have a very important job of emptying trash throughout the 2 days on Saturday and Sunday. So we really, every little bit helps. And I would very much appreciate it until our online information gets up. Feel free to email me at llbsheridan@gmail.com if you're interested or willing to help. So please consider lending a hand for an hour or two. Bring your friends or make it a family event and say that you helped create this awesome event so that we can continue to make this one of Milton's most memorable events of the year. Our website is wearemilton.org, and you can check that out for the most recent and updated information. So I'm going to pause and ask Richard Wells if I forgot anything or left anything out.
I want to know, when did we get the money to buy a teleprompter? Because I'm looking at you going, how is she going on? Unbelievable.
No teleprompter.
No, I'm teasing you. Listen, Linda Lee has been our point person on this. This is truly an amazing event, which is an offshoot of the 350th celebration that took place, am I correct, in 2013?
12-13.
All right,
yeah.
in 2013. And we garner about 5,000 people every weekend now. So this is a pretty amazing event for Milton. So we're all very proud of it. It is pretty, as you said, it's unbelievable we do this with 6 people. But be honest, we can't thank all the town departments, all the groups that help us, the supporters, our main benefactor, the Copa Fund. There's so many people who help us make this come to reality, and all we pray for is a sunny day, and it's all good both days. So all good. We'll see you at Milton Music Fest 2022.
Well, thank you very, very much for that wonderful introduction to this forthcoming community event. And gratitude not only to you and your small band, including Richard, but all those who take the time to assist and support, as Richard said, in any way, shape, or form. And if there's any way in which the board can be of support to you in getting the word out, otherwise, please don't be shy.
Thanks, Arthur. I should mention the names of the other volunteers. It's
Please do.
Kathy Fagan and Eric Miller and Gary Kelly and Glenn Pavlicek. So it's the 6 of us. And like Richard said, I was going to mention the Copeland Family Foundation. That's usually my final word. So yeah, we couldn't do it without the sponsors in the town that helped make this possible. So they're very generous with their talents, and we're very appreciative. So hope to see you all there.
Thank you, Linda Lee. Before you leave, Erin Bradley, Select Board member, has just joined us. Welcome, Erin. Give any of the other members of the Select Board an opportunity to comment or ask a question if they wish to do so. Hearing none. Thank you, Linda Lee.
All right. Thank you. Have a great
wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Great job.
Good night, kiddo.
Item number 5 on our agenda this evening is the discussion and update from our fire chief, Chris Madden, on fire department related issues. Welcome. Great to have you with us again, Chief Madden.
Good evening. Good to see everybody. Ms. Musto, Ms. Bradley, congratulations. You know, any way I can help you, let me know, please. So congratulations. Everybody else, hello.
Good evening.
So I guess a quick update on the fire department. You know, some of the things that we do and something, you know, what we're looking to do and stuff. So since January 1st till April 30th, the fire department has responded to 1,387 incidents, which included 30 fires, which includes, you know, a couple of building fires, small fires in houses, cooking fires, vehicle fires, outside fires. So that was kind of low. 809 medical responses, which also includes about 114 motor vehicle accidents that we responded to. 30 hazardous conditions, which is like gas problems, electrical problems, just hazardous conditions that, you know, need to be rectified immediately. 71 service calls to residents. Whenever a resident has a question or whatever, we can respond out there and help them out. You know, fire related, health, safety related. So it was 71 of those, and 239 inspections. And what we do is we do fire drills with the schools. So the inspectional department, or Lieutenant Italiano, who's the fire prevention officer, has been extremely busy, and all the companies actually help out and they do the school fire drills. So with that said, the budget, everyone likes to hear the budget, right? It's going to be tight. We're going to be tight. You know, as most of you know, that we took a $100,000 cut from last year, for this fiscal year. So we're really tight on this, and we're watching the budget extremely close to make sure to, you know, to see where we are. And with that, you know, one of the things that we really limited this year was any outside training. So, you know, we have a few people that are retiring, and these spots, the specialty spots have opened up, but we have been unable to fill those spots or train those spots just because of the budget, you know. And then, you know, operationally, we've made it so far, but it's going to be really close at the end of the year to see where we are. So with that said, you know, the training right now, we are training on the Pro Phoenix record management system that the Milton Police and Milton Fire are sharing, which is basically a way to keep all our records, runs, incidents, the way that we staff, you know, sick time, vacation time, everything. So we started training on that this week. We don't have a go live date. We're the first ones to go, so we're working out a lot of the bugs with that system. Milton Police will be following us afterwards. So I think that will probably be a go live date, probably someplace, maybe the end of the summer, early fall, by the time we get everybody trained. Right now, we're just training a few officers that will be able to train the entire department. Milton Fire continues to work with our public safety partners. We've done a lot of work with Ms. Kinsella and the health department. Transformative ambulance, we're working with them, getting a lot of in-house training. The DPW, Mr. Chase Berkeley and Tom McCarthy have been fantastic, helping us train with them. And one of the things that, and I know Mr. Wells, would probably have, so NFPA 3000, which is basically, it's called ASHER, which is Active Shooter Hostile Event. Basically any active shooter or anything like that was just adopted by the state of Massachusetts. And so all police and fire departments will be working on that together. So we do have some of that equipment, and we've started working with Milton Police on that. So any kind of event, we'll be able to work well with them. And Chief King and the police department are great to work with. So and as well as this Pro Phoenix project that we're working on. I would have to give a huge shout out to Charlie Colligan at Central Maintenance. I don't know if you had an opportunity to meet him. We've had a few problems with our apparatus over the last few months, some of them going down really hard. And Charlie Colligan has been fantastic. Any problems that we have with our apparatus, he's on it immediately, going above and beyond. He's been fantastic. He's truly a great asset to the town of Milton. Let me see, what else am I missing? Milton Fire is at full staff right now. I will start the hiring process real soon. That we do have a retirement coming up in January, so I'd like to fill that spot, now. And then when the fire academy spot comes open up, which if I hire now, I think their fire academy is filling out to December. So by the time the hiring process is complete, when that person retires in January, I'll be able to fill that spot immediately and send them to the fire academy. So just trying to plan ahead a little bit there. And then I guess probably the big thing would be the news over the last couple of weeks would be the brush fires in the Blue Hills. They've been extensive. They've been there, pretty busy. I stopped by tonight. Quincy has a fire right now going, just over behind the reservoir up on Chickatawbit Road. So the ones in Milton, the first one was on May 1st, burned 16 acres. Deputy Chief Murphy, Jeff Murphy, did a fantastic job. And I think there were probably 10 cities and towns that helped us out with that one. May 8th was Deputy Chief Linehan. That one burned 63 acres, but that was a really windy day over the area of Buck Hill. Really high winds, dry conditions, difficult access. That one was pretty well ahead of us by the time we got up there. And then May 14th burned another 12 acres in the area of Walcott Hill. Our mutual aid firefighting brothers, sisters from the surrounding towns have done a fantastic job assisting us from Quincy, Randolph, Canton, Westwood. We had a Dover tanker here. We've had Freetown. Everybody's has really helped us out on that. So I will let you know that the cause of all those fires are undetermined right now. We do have our fire investigators have been in the Blue Hills frequently to try and see if they can kind of get any kind of sense of what's causing this. Most likely natural causes. Unsure whether it's careless cigarette. We really haven't. When you're talking about burning 63 acres, to find any kind of spark that would start a fire is kind of very difficult. And we are working with the Quincy Fire Investigation Unit, Randolph Fire Investigators, and Canton Fire Investigators. So all 4 towns that have a stake in the Blue Hills have been sending their investigators up there to try and find a cause to see what's going on up there. So that's my report. If you have any questions, I'm sure you do.
Well said. Thank you, Chief, very, very much. I open the floor to the members of the Select Board for questions and comments. Ms. Musto.
Hi, I just wanted to take the opportunity to commend the fire chief on this because I know my son, he follows us all the time on Twitter and sees everything that's going on, but it's quite a feat to be fighting all these fires, especially in that kind of terrain. And just sort of curious as to, they're looking, it sounds like you're looking and investigating what the cause is. How does this compare to, say, last year or the year before with the amount of fires? Did we have fires in the Blue Hills over the past 2 or 3 years? Is this an anomaly that we're thinking that it could have been, carelessness or intention, or just curious?
So when the Blue Hills, we have fires in the Blue Hills every year, but just not to this magnitude. And some of the things that happen is, every year you're looking for it and say, if this is the year it's going to burn, this year it's going to burn. And last year was extremely wet, so we never had that fire. So you look at all the leaves that fell last year and all the branches that fell last year. Well, they dried out over the year. And so it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years of all that forest debris on the ground right now. And it's been really, really dry. So there's a lot of stuff to burn. So it just, you get a spark, whether it's a careless cigarette, so a hiker with a cigarette or just natural causes or whatever it is. So this usually happens every 5 years, every 10 years, you'll get these active burns because of all that undergrowth that just hasn't lit up in years and hasn't cleaned out. So it'll happen every once in a while, every few years. And like all those areas that burn right now, you won't have any leaves on it for a few more years. And then, it'll go through the whole cycle again.
Thank you.
And one thing I would like to add on this, these fires, these wildland fires, they're not anywhere near the magnitude of the West Coast. The West Coast, those fires actually get into the treetops and they travel at 60 miles an hour up thousands of feet of mountains, and it's just impossible to stop. Here, the fires are usually 2 or 3 feet off the ground, no higher than your knee. It's just all the growth, all the under, stuff down low. It very, very rarely catches a tree. All the trees are green right now, so to get a tree to start catch on fire is nearly impossible right now. And one of the things that we are very good, with Quincy and Randolph and Canton and Westwood and all the cities around us and the towns around us, we call it suburban wildland interface. It's where the woods meet houses. The town is very well equipped with hydrants. So if we do have something getting close, we have plenty of water to knock all that fire down really quick. And again, it's only 2, 3 feet off the ground. So it really, it's not like out west. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Chief. I just want to follow up. You're correct in that, unlike the wildfires that, as you know, I work out in Idaho every summer and we have massive wildfire. They'll burn like 50,000 acres in a day. You've done a great job managing this. Anyone who follows the Friends of the Blue Hills, they've been publishing the past 2 weeks that we're kind of overdue for this. Unlike, in our homes, we rake our leaves, we clear our debris. They don't do that in DCR forests and DCR lands. And you could see how this was going to happen. But my question just to you, Chief, is there anything I know brought up, a lot of mutual aid from the county, task forces, tankers. Is there anything else that we need that we could do to help you with this?
No, I think we're pretty good, and watching the budget. So, these are labor intensive fires. You're talking about dragging thousands of feet of hose into the woods. So yeah, they're real. So, I think we had Boston Engine 16 covering the town for about 8 hours the other day. So, one of the things that we try to do is to limit the amount of time that an engine company is covering the town. So we did hire back some people. Unfortunately, I was away for 2 of the fires, so we did hire back deputy chiefs to run the town while the deputies from the day were running the fire. So it did hit the budget a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but it's you got to make sure that they have the what they need and the staffing, and it's the labor that really puts these fires out. So they did a really I'm Deputy Chief Linehan at 63 acres, and I think there were 30-40 mile per hour winds that day that he was up there, and the group working that day did a fantastic job, and all 3 groups, and all groups that they've done a really good job of limiting the size of these fires and getting in there and working hard. I mean, when you see these people come out of the woods, they're just filthy, covered with wood, leaves and ticks and whatever. So they've done a fantastic job.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Zulus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Chief. Thanks for the report. Thanks for all your work. And I know you'll relay to all the firefighters our great appreciation for everything they've been doing, particularly lately. I just want to remind you or ask you, with respect to the budget, we do have a reserve fund. And to the extent that you have extraordinary and unforeseen expenditures, that might be something that you can seek through the warrant committee, and really it's to the warrant committee to make the decision. So to the extent that those fires have created issues, and seems to me they were probably extreme and or extraordinary and unforeseen, you may be able to get some relief from the reserve fund.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I did have the conversation with Ms. Fagan, just to make sure that, to make sure she's been great, every step of the way. Anytime I have a question, she's a great person to talk to, and the experience is unparalleled with her. So she was great to talk to. So I appreciate it.
Speaking of Ms. Fagan, Anne Marie, did you receive, and this relates to the fires in the Blue Hills, a question or an inquiry from a resident relative to alternative routes as the fires may approach residential areas that we might put on the table?
Yes, I did, Mr. Chairman, and I did forward that to Chief Madden and to Chief King, and they were going to discuss that and get back to that resident.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Chief, for doing that. Yes, Chief.
If I may, I did respond to that resident, and some of the things that I talked about tonight is that the fires that are out west that everyone sees on the news, yes, they are scary, and the smoke does, reach, it's far reaching. So it does cause some concern, but I think, like I said, the way that we are very good at fighting those fires that come close to neighborhoods, the Milton Fire Department is really, really good at that. So it's really not that much of a concern of mine, to do that. And I don't mean to be callous or anything like that, but we have, plenty of help, plenty of mutual aid. We could have 20, 30 engines in town, in 10 minutes here, with Boston and Quincy, and, plenty of mutual aid partners that could really, really, stop a fire in its tracks of these kinds. And usually it takes 1 or 2 engines to do that. And, and one of the things that we talk about, with the evacuation plan, and one of the things that we talked about, if that does happen, our deputy chiefs are really, really good and experienced and been around for a long time, and they've seen a lot. And if it did start to approach houses, we could reach out to our public safety partners at Milton Police, and we could start, evacuating any nearby houses. But, there's really not much, I would be more concerned if I was in a tight neighborhood where the houses are 10 feet apart and one of the houses did catch fire. Those are the ones that would really get ahead of us, and those are the challenges. But if it's one of these brush fires that you find up, and I say wildland, but it's really a brush fire, and if one of those are close to a house, we have all the experience, the tools, and the equipment to really knock those down real quick. So I as far as like forming a plan, a master plan for that, yeah, we can do that just in case. But right now, I'm pretty confident in the abilities of the Milton Fire and the abilities of our surrounding towns, and just the nature of the fire. I mean, like 2 or 3 feet off the ground is really not much of a fire. They're real smoky because there's the little moisture in the leaves, a little bit, but they're just real more smoky than anything else. And nuisance fires really is what they are. So and I did respond to them, but working with our public safety partners, like I said, Milton Police, DPW, will be able to evacuate anybody that would need to be evacuated.
Thank you, Chief. And I'd just like to add that I very much appreciate your comments about the priority on training. And if there are resource restrictions that are creating difficulties in that area, please, we would want to know about that. And I know you'd speak directly with our interim town administrator, and we as a select board would be as supportive as we can.
Yeah, I thank you, and I actually, and I guess I would also like to thank you, the board, for the approving the contract with GNR construction for the new firehouse. That we have the kickoff meeting on Thursday at 3 o'clock for the new firehouse, and you look for the future, and one of the things that I'm trying to do is build a fire department for the future and make sure that we are adequately, and just having the infrastructure of the new firehouse will really put us light years ahead. One of the jokes around here is that, with this new software that we got going on, we are going from 18th century technology to 21st century technology, and we're going ahead 300 years in about 2-3 years. So it's really fantastic, and I can't thank you enough for supporting that and moving us in that direction.
I would just add on that note that one of the major shifts that I perceived is one away from it being perceived as what the fire department needs, but rather one of what the community needs the fire department to have. And all of the men and women who worked very, very hard on that enterprise deserve a great deal of gratitude in helping to shift mindsets, as well as to making what is going to be breaking ground in the not too distant future a possibility for us. Again, and the us being the community, fire department, in the community served by the fire department.
Yeah, I agree. There is a lot of benefit for the individual members of the department, but I think the bigger benefit is for the town, for the community, for the residents. We'll be able to have the infrastructure that will prepare us. The training tower alone to this new software, and having the computer, the ability, the emergency operations center, just everything. The space. These apparatus are getting bigger and bigger here. If you've ever been in here, you can see that there's fire trucks 2-3 feet away from the walls. There's really not a lot of space. So it's true. Having the infrastructure set for the town, for the fire department, for the town, is really important.
Thank you. And thank you for your preparation for the meeting tonight and for your valuable time and being with us.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Our next,
Mr. Chairman, could we move Karen Praval over from attendee to panelist, please?
we certainly can. Are we ready to go on to item number 7? We have with us as a panelist now, we have Laura Delicai from our health department. And Laura, we have 2 items that you'll be addressing: an update on COVID-19 and the community health assessment survey. After which we'd invite you to stay for a little while we go into the ARPA funding approvals that we have on the table. And welcome Karen Praval as well. Laura?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Laura, for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will first just want to say a quick congratulations to Member Musto and Member Bradley for winning the new select board seat. So congratulations to you both. And I'm just going to start off with our COVID-19 update after consulting with the director, Caroline Kinsella, and our nurse, Susan Poirier. So I'm just going to read off my report. The health department is observing an increase in lab confirmed cases over the last 3 to 4 weeks. These numbers do not reflect at-home antigen tests. Our case count for the last 4 days so this is starting Sunday, May 15th. So we had 7 adults and 2 children. Monday, the 16th, we had 8 adults and 3 children. Tuesday, the 17th, we had 10 adults and 6 children. And Wednesday, as of today, this afternoon, I want to say around 3 or 4 p.m., we had 7 adults and 2 children. Presently, the 14-day % positivity rate in Milton, which is through May 1st through May 14th in Milton, is 10.03%, which is up from last week, which was 7.33%. And the week before that was 4.93%. So it is significantly higher in Milton. And we got that number by dividing 231 residents who had tested positive in Milton out of the 2,302 tests that were administered in the last 2 weeks. And just to compare ourselves with the statewide percent positivity rate, which is currently at 9.12%. And just a quick update on Milton Public Schools. So Kim Coughlin got back to me today, and with the antigen test performed at home the last week, they had 14 staff and 88 students test positive, and this was through May 12th through the 18th. And just a quick update from Alex Campbell, who is the lead infection control nurse up at BID Milton Hospital. He had reported that there was an increased number in inpatient COVID cases, about 100% increase in the last 2 weeks. Same with staff, which is a 400% increase in the last 2 weeks. All have receiving their second booster. They are also seeing a large increase in outpatient flu testing. However, despite their uptick in cases, their ICU is not being impacted by the increased COVID numbers. And in the health department as well, with the cases that we are following, which is currently the children, we're not obligated by the state right now to follow the adults. They want us to focus all of our energy and time on the children, but we are observing breakthrough cases of fully vaccinated and boosted residents. Predominantly, they are mild to moderate symptoms reported in vaccinated individuals, and we're seeing more adults than children that are testing positive. Majority are vaccinated and boosted, and children who are ages 5 to 12 are vaccinated, but they're not yet eligible for their boosters. And just to update you, the current variant we are seeing that tends to be more infectious right now in the Northeast is the BA2.12.1, and that is a variant of I think it was the B2 variant before that, which is a variant of the Omicron. So a couple levels back. And then this variant is more transmissible than the previous variant and with a shorter incubation period. However, even though it's being more transmissible, we're not seeing a severity in illness, which is good. And our nurse, Susan, reports that right now this variant is affecting mostly middle-aged people in Milton, so roughly 40 to 50-year-olds. And the health department is continuing to contact trace children with the lab tests in schools, preschools, congregate care settings, and clusters for the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. And our nurse has been in regular contact with our early childhood education programs. I know she's been getting a lot of calls from them lately. So they're seeing students in the daycare programs and preschool and whatnot testing positive or having siblings tested positive. Luckily, no one's getting severely ill that she's reporting to us yet. And any questions, feel free to ask me now and I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you for your very comprehensive and clear report, Laura. Questions for Laura, for members of the board? Yes, Ms. Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, I'd like to ask a couple of questions if it's okay. So obviously there are other towns in our area that have seen an uptick recently and they've implemented mask mandates. I'm wondering where our Board of Health is on this currently and whether or not anybody thinks that we should start wearing masks inside within our town.
So usually Caroline has direct contact with all board members, and I will interject as well if she needs me to, but I know we have our next meeting. I think we just set the date, June 21st or something like that. It's or June 20th, right after Juneteenth. So I can definitely talk with Caroline as well as talk with all the board members about potentially putting masks back on the table at our next board meeting.
I'm just curious. So the schools get to make their own mask mandate because, correct, question mark. And then my next question would be, why is it the Board of Health isn't stepping in? Because I can tell you that in my son's class in 7th grade, there are a ton of kids that have been out with COVID. This is a common thing that we are seeing within our own friend group. He had a fever this weekend. I tested him 3 times. I'm just curious as to who makes the decisions for our kids in the school. Is it our Board of Health or is it our school department?
I want to say this is a question I have to refer back to Susan and Caroline because I know the schools have to follow DESE guidance, which is the Department of early and secondary education. And
I know them.
yeah. And
But
for-
other schools are following the town guidelines, correct?
do you mean the private schools like Milton Academy, Fontbonne Academy?
No, I mean things like Brookline, other towns in our Commonwealth that are following their Board of Health recommendations.
I have not heard anything about that, but we are part of a coalition of 8 other surrounding communities. It's called the Norfolk County 8, and I can definitely reach out to all of them and just see where the directors are at with their boards of health and what they've done in their towns. Some of the towns that we collaborate with include Needham, Dedham, Westwood. So we will talk with all those towns, or I can get an update from them to see if they've gone back to the mass, who has implemented, was the Board of Health, is it their select board, or are they leaving it up to the schools versus town? I can get all information for you on that, member.
Laura, that
Bradley,
would be
get back to you.
great. Thank you. I would really appreciate that because we're definitely seeing it. I mean, at least for my son's class, we're definitely seeing it across the board. So any information you could get me about that would be great. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Any other questions on the COVID agenda item for Laura, please? Not seeing any, we will go to the next topic, which is Laura, the Community Health Assessment Survey that you'll be introducing us to.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to read a short announcement that I have about 2 minutes just to highlight what we're doing in the health department. And recently, Walter Timilty has granted us an earmark of $30,000 to complete a townwide community health assessment. And I'm just hoping to get the word out on several boards and committees, hopefully to get on the school committee as well, and the planning board as well, eventually to get the word out to have participants get excited about our community health assessment, how it can benefit them. And I'm just going to read the announcement that I have now.
Thank you.
So good evening. My name is Laura Delakai, and we have some exciting news to share with you. The Milton Health Department has received funding to conduct a community health assessment, also known as a CHA, and formulate a community health improvement plan, also known as a CHIP. Thanks to the efforts of Senator Walter Timilty in securing federal ARPA money for this project, the Milton Health Department has never before conducted a formal assessment to uncover what types of health challenges, service gaps, and health disparities exist in Milton, yet it is a best practice for local and state health departments as well as community hospitals to do so. This process will allow us to collect information through stakeholder interviews, focus groups, and surveys, and by analyzing existing statistical data collected by our partner and governmental organizations to help us better understand and address Milton's greatest health needs and identify those who may be at greatest risk. We have access to regional epidemiologists who will help us collect and analyze the findings, and this data will be used to inform the development of a strategic action plan, also referred to as a community health improvement plan, CHIP I mentioned before, which will focus on addressing preventable illnesses and injuries, as well as mental and behavioral health needs of adult and young residents. Ultimately, we hope that this process and data will bring new policies, procedures, and resources that will promote a healthier Milton. We hope that our town agencies, partners, and residents will help make this a successful effort by sharing their ideas, perspectives, and data. I am also pleased to announce that the Board of Health unanimously voted to approve Milton resident Lori Stillman as the project manager to oversee the design and implementation of the CHA and the CHIP and guide the team over the next 9 to 12 months. Ms. Stillman has over 35 years of postgraduate experience managing public health organizations and community health improvement programs across New England and is thoroughly familiar with many health data sources that exist within the town and has fostered excellent trusting relationships with community leaders and institutions across sectors. In addition to Ms. Stillman, our assessment team will consist of the health director, Caroline Kinsella, myself, Laura Delakai, and 2 regional epidemiologists, which are Amber Mullen and Rachel Braz. Our efforts will be conducted with the Milton Coalition, a program run through the health department, which addresses substance use and youth in Milton. The Milton Health Department is committed to ensuring that the assessment and strategic plan development will be transparent, community-based, participatory process. We are excited that the Partnership for a Healthy Milton, a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting a healthier Milton, will serve as the project's core community advisory committee, also leading the charge to reach out to local community and grassroots organizations, leaders, and residents to assist us with a comprehensive, thoughtful, and respectful plan of action. If you know of anyone who might be interested in joining the Community Advisory Committee through the Partnership for a Healthy Milton, please contact the Health Department by June 15th of this year at 617-898-4886. The time commitment would be meeting up to 2 hours every 4 to 6 weeks over a 9 to 12 month period. We thank you for allowing us to make this announcement, and we hope that you will be involved and point us into any relevant data that might provide us with insights, knowledge, and perspectives on how we can make Milton a healthier town to live in for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions for her, please? Or comments? Ms. Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Laura, just so you know, I serve on the Chenod Chip for Boston with the Brigham and Women's Faulkner Hospital. And we're currently giving away $5 million to our community services. And I serve on that because of my role as an advocate for seniors currently. So if there's anything that I can do, and I'm not sure if I can serve on both Chenod Chips, but if there's something that I can do for our own town, I would love to do that, because being a senior advocate is one of those populations that sometimes get overlooked for their isolation and some other issues that go with being a senior in a town that doesn't have public transportation at their doorstep. So I'd love to talk with you offline about the Chenod Chip, if that's okay with you.
Yes, Member Bradley, that would be wonderful. We're actually looking for a couple people to represent senior citizens, also veterans on our Community Advisory Committee. We are very fortunate in Milton to have a pretty diverse Partnership for a Healthy Milton. The members are pretty diverse in their backgrounds, genders, racial, ethnic backgrounds as well. And but we are lacking in representing senior citizens, also those with disabilities, whether physical or mental learning disabilities, and veterans. So we are looking for people of the community who are Milton residents or strong advocates for Milton residents within the community to advise us on how we can reach those populations and make sure we're servicing those people appropriately, because those types of people are also, I know we're going to see service gaps within those types of populations. So definitely want to see them represented, but I'm happy to chat with you offline later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Laura. I'll contact you in the next few days. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments?
Say thank you to Laura, and once again to all the staff at the Milton Health Department who've been in a combat situation unlike anything they ever would have thought to experience. They've become wartime employees in a way that they probably never envisioned in their lives. So thank you for everything you've done for all the residents of this community, especially since the break of COVID, which is now over 2 years ago.
Thank you, Member Wells.
And thank you to those behind the making of resources available for our having the Community Health Assessment Survey. Laura, thank you. And at this point, I'd like to turn to Mr. Zulus, Chair of the Finance Subcommittee of the Select Board, for our next item of business. We have Laura as part of that, and Karen with us for it as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, without objection, I'd like to move to item 8B and have item 8B skip first, because then we can move Laura. She can stay if she wants, or she can go do something else. So if there's no objection, we'll go to item 8B, which is the Health Department's permitting software. We discussed this briefly last week, but it wasn't on the agenda. On May 11th, the Select Board Finance Committee voted to recommend that the Select Board appropriate up to $39,970 from the Norfolk County provided ARPA funding to the Department of Health for the purchase of Permitize 2020 permitting software. And Laura can go into a little bit more detail if we need to, but essentially this is software that will allow this health department to automate and streamline permitting and licensing processes. We have, I think you've all seen or had the PowerPoint that Laura presented to the Finance Committee. And perhaps if Laura,
Excuse
I see
me
Roxanne's.
one second.
Yeah, for Roxanne.
I
you
just,
wanna go ahead?
I'm trying to get your attention. I'm just gonna step off on this one, okay?
Oh, okay.
Oh, I need to step off on this one, okay? Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so so with that, if I don't know if Laura, you want to give a little bit of background to the board for this recommended appropriation.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'll just share my screen just so everyone can see the PowerPoint live right now. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
So I won't give the full presentation that I gave to members Ulis and Chairman Doyle, but basically I'm advocating for the health department to get a permitting software system. We've never had anything like this in the health department before. We've been all paper-based with our permitting processes, and it has been very time consuming. Since I started at the health department 3 years ago, I've tried each year to make the process more streamlined, more organized, and just easier to handle because it's so time consuming come fall and with everything else going on, like our flu clinics, more inspections. I have the barn inspections in the fall, and usually complaints are still up during then. So we just have a lot going on in the fall. And I think this software system is going to make the permitting and licensing process much more streamlined, easier for myself, easier for our senior administrative clerk, Jean Peterson, and easier for the applicants. I think there will be a lot of better communication and a lot less frustration. And this is also a software that the Inspectional Services Department has been using since 2009. And they are really enjoy the software. They just upgraded to the 2020 version. I want to say maybe even several weeks ago, and they're really enjoying the platform. I also have sign-in access to their permit I system because I have to sign off on some of their permits, and it's just so much easier based on the older version versus the newer version. It's just much more easier to follow, a lot more clean, organized, and I think it will benefit the department as well, as we do a lot of permits, just like inspectional services. And here I list the permits we do. I hope I'm not missing any, but I think last time I counted, it was like 33 or 34 different kinds of permits that we do in the health department. And I'm sure with public health is always just evolving. New regulations are always coming out. There's always new state mandates that we have to start implementing at the local level. There's local regulations that we could be enacting. Like, for example, we don't have private well regulations in Milton right now. Maybe that's something we have in the future. And eventually, if we do, we're going to have create a whole new permitting process for that as well. So I'm trying to get ahead of the game and create a software system that's just going to make it easier and more streamlined for everyone to deal with this. And this is just kind of a step-by-step overview of what goes on in our office during the permitting season. It's really just madness. And I've been trying to limit our paper trails in the office, because I don't know if any of you have been in our office recently, but we're already running out of space and we don't need any more paper taking that up. But starting in the fall, I do all the permit renewals. The only ones I don't do in the fall, I believe, are the like our ice cream truck permits. I think everything else is done in the fall. But basically I get all the different types of permits: food, tobacco, septic, funeral directors. We get it all, tanning. And I have to process all the different types of permits. I have separate folders for all of them, different color folders from what needs to be on my desk versus what needs to go on Jean's desk to print off the permits, to take the checks, to make sure they're paid. And it's just a lot of back and forth going between our desks. Our senior administrative clerk is also only part-time at 21 and a half hours. So it makes it really difficult sometimes to link up with her when we're trying to get permitting done, because she's also been with the town, I want to say 20 years and maybe a little longer than that. So she has a lot of time off accumulated. So there will be some weeks where I only see Jean 1 day a week, which can really push the permitting process back. And that's also frustrating for applicants, because obviously they submitted all this paperwork. I hounded them to get it in and make sure they had all their documents attached. And then the fact that they have to wait on me to get permits out, it's just not ideal. And with COVID, I was really late in getting some permits out this year. I mean, I told them verbally it's coming, but I really like to have it in hand, like, or ready to mail out and say, it's on its way at the appropriate time, not like a month later. But there's only so many hands, so many people to process the paperwork, and I gotta do what I can with the staff that we do have. I also have to manually stamp all the applications with the date they're received. Like I said, they're transported back and forth between me and Jean's desk about the different phases that they're in. Even though I stress with all the applicants to not turn in an application that's not complete, most everyone turns in an incomplete application, and I'm chasing them down for various documents. And although it may not seem important to them, it's very important to us, especially on a keeping records basis. We need to make sure that the health department, as well as all town health departments, are keeping accurate and complete records. So that can be really time consuming just to chase people down. We have to use a lot of budgetary resources, like excessive amounts of toner, special parchment paper that we print all our our permits on, all the envelopes we have to use, and the stamps that we have to use to mail out the permits. It's just very time consuming, and I feel like it wastes a lot of resources that if we move digitally, we can streamline this process as well as save a lot of tangible resources. And again, just going over disadvantage, process can be delayed, which is time consuming. I also in the fall just get on top of all the inspections. I have done meetings I have to go to, all the community health assessment meetings that are going to be gearing up, as well as my coalition meetings I have to attend, and then just to keep up with everything else in the office. My inbox gets flooded with emails, and just to have the application questions on top of there, I want to make sure I answer everyone and I don't miss anything, but it can get a little overwhelming, and it would be nice to have a software platform where everything can just stay in the platform, all documents, all questions. It doesn't have to overwhelm a different part of our office. And then, like I said, continually chasing down applicants for documents and checks. And a lot of times we tell them, what their fee is. Half the time they don't send in the correct check, or they make it out to the wrong town or the wrong department. And then we're chasing them down for a new check, finding out they want it shredded or returned back. It's a lot of kind of a lot of hand holding. And also just with the paper trail, there's a risk of documents getting lost or misfiled. And I try to be as organized as possible, but it's very time consuming. Sometimes I'm doing 20 different things, and the last thing on my mind is to scan this 20-page application into my files, and having to drop it in all my subfolders to make sure it's saved in the 2022 food permits. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it takes longer than you think it would. And again, a big time suck for us. And these are just outlining some broad advantages of Permit Eyes. So again, the process is going to be streamlined. All applications, all documents, even payment is all going to be on Permit Eyes. Users can make an account, and returning users can auto-populate past information. Also, those who have accounts with Inspectional Services Department, if the Health Department also gets Permit Eyes, they'll be able to access both departments' permitting systems, so they can do both at the same time. We can send reminder emails through the platform. So typically in the fall, I'll send out like 6 different emails to all my like for example, my food establishment, saying, giving them my long spiel about getting all their stuff in. Don't be late, or there's the 50% late fee. Don't send any incomplete documents. So I can actually make a template within Permit Eyes and just automatically send that out with all the applicants that make accounts. So that's really nice, not having to create a listserv in my email, having all the read receipts and delivered receipts come back to me, or the questions, like it can all be done in a chat or via email on Permit Eyes. I can also create checklists within the software to ensure applications are not missing any documents. So we can clearly have a checklist that says you need your ServSafe certificate, you need your workers' comp insurance affidavit, and they'll have to see that they need to attach that or it's not going to let them move on to the next step. So they'll know exactly what they're missing, exactly what I'm looking for. And if they have a clarifying question, they can easily just ask me in the chat. And again, to relate this back to ARPA funds and how it's helping reduce the spread of COVID-19 is that it eliminates the need for in-person contact or contamination through the platform. So again, if everything can be done virtually, I don't have to receive applications via paper. No one has to come into the office filing paperwork. They also don't have to take time off from work or come in at the end of the day of their busy schedule, drop stuff in. It can all be done through the computer. We can even set the payments up to have applicants pay directly through PermitEyes rather than having to send us in paper checks, which Jean would then have to go through and process. It can all be done through an automated system, which is great. I don't have to worry about scanning files, shredding information that's personal, and I don't have to worry about organizing that in my folders on my computer. It can all just be saved in the platform. I also can create interdepartmental review on PermitEyes. So anything I might need the sign off of other departments for example, if I'm opening a new food establishment, I can say building needs to sign off, fire needs to sign off, DPW needs to sign off, and it won't move through the application process further until those departments sign off. And that way, I think it just creates better automated communication through other departments. Like I don't have to call up the building commissioner, Joe Prondak, hey, I have so-and-so at this address. I need to make sure that they're all set with their occupancy permit. I don't need to have them call. They'll just get a notification through PermitEyes that I have a sign off waiting for them rather than have to just create another to-do list item by giving them a call when I'm sure they have so many other calls that they need to return from residents. And also another component of PermitEyes that we're hoping to get is the inspectional software that comes with PermitEyes. So currently we have a permitting software for food inspections, which is excellent. It's an excellent platform. It's designed by inspectors for inspectors, and I love that. The only thing is it's just for food, and I think they're also coming out with a housing platform. But again, they only create those two types of inspection platforms for their type of technology, but PermitEyes can do a lot of other different applications or inspection reports that Food Code Pro relevant systems cannot do, like our tanning inspections, microblading inspections, our camps, which the camps are super long. So to have that all done electronically and not have to bring out a stack of papers. I kid you not, before COVID, we had 19 camps in Milton, and our nurse Susan, who handles the camps, had about a file stack for each camp like this. So to have that all in a tablet is just going to make life a lot easier. And rather than having to, do a carbon copy and making sure they're signing all the papers, like we can just have them sign right on the tablet, email it to them, done. Don't need to worry about paperwork getting lost or anything like that. And then here, of course, it's all about the money. But here are the two options that we're looking at for PermitEyes, and the health department would really like to go with option A, which would include the additional inspection forms. So basically, the one-time setup cost is $19,300, but the annual cost is only $9,800. And the payment integration, which would allow applicants to sign up on or sign, what am I saying? To pay through PermitEyes for any sort of permit they have. It's a one-time payment of $500. So 1 year paying $500, we have payments set up on PermitEyes forever. And then the tablet, again, that's a setup fee about almost $4,000, but then just to maintain it, it's only a little over $1,600, and we don't need to buy tablets either, I don't think, because I have an extra one in case something happens to my first tablet for Food Code Pro, so we can use that. And we also have 2 tablets through our emergency preparedness funds. And so you can see for the subtotals for the one-time cost, it's going to be $28,500, but the annual cost after that each year is only going to be about $11,000 500. So I think this is a perfect time to use ARPA because I don't see the health department ever getting this kind of opportunity or money that it has the potential to use to do something like this. And I think it's really going to benefit the town, the department, getting the department more organized, better digital communication with other departments, and just making the process easier for residents. Like no
And
need to,
thank you, Laura. And
sorry.
it's an opera eligible project. And
Yes.
thank you for your very comprehensive presentation. Are there any questions from members of the board, please?
Mr. Chair, are you looking for a motion tonight?
Ms. Bradley has a question.
Sorry.
Turn to her, and then yes, Mr. Wells, a motion on this. Thank you. Ms.
Yes,
Bradley.
and thank you, Mr. Chair, and I fully support the motion to move this forward. However, I have a couple questions about the members of our committee. When I was on the warrant committee and somebody had some other issues with something we were voting on, they just recused themselves. And so I'm curious as to know if this is something that we should do in the future, which is to basically remove themselves from a discussion. And my second question is this going to be something that constantly happens with anything that has to do with the Board of Health? So if we have to vote on masks or if we have to vote on any pandemic information, is this something that Member Musto is going to continue to do? Because I believe that that might be something that we should discuss openly, because I think that that is not okay that you have to stop being a member of the select board because of other duties. Is that correct?
We can explore that. Thank you for raising it. And we will do so. We'll figure out a way in which to appropriately address the questions that you have. I would
Perfect.
ask.
I really appreciate that.
Anne Marie, a comment that you would like to make?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to, it noted that Ms. Musto did recuse herself. She is offline at this point, and I will text her when this item is over. And I will reach out to town council if you would like and get a ruling on whether or not she has to recuse herself for any item that comes before the board relative to the Board of Health.
Exactly. Thank you, Ms. Fagan. And there is a precedent for recusal. For example, when our former chair was working on the agenda and there were items with respect to bonding, since she works for the bond council for the town of Milton, she would recuse herself just as Ms. Musto did.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I understand that. I understand that. My question is did she take herself completely offline when that happened?
We'll find out.
Because what just happened is that one of the members of our board took themselves offline, and recusal to me doesn't mean that somebody has to take themselves completely offline. It just means that they are recusing themselves from the
That's my
discussion.
understanding as well, but we will
Okay,
double
thank
check
you.
on all of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Zulus.
Okay, yes. Well, I'll make a motion to appropriate up to $39,970 from Norfolk County provided ARPA funding to the Department of Health for the purpose of permanized 2020 permitting software.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Zulus, seconded by Mr. Wells. Any questions?
Let's go for it, baby.
Hearing none. The roll, Mr. Zulus.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Ms. Bradley.
Yes.
And Mr. Doyle, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, select board members.
Thank you, Laura.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Mr. Zulus, back to you.
Item 8A is the Clifton Larson Allen consultant services contract in the amount of $2,000.
But I'm sorry, but Roxanne's not back.
Mr. Chairman, I just texted her, so technology.
Like this is not, this is weird.
Here she is.
She's back.
All right.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Item 8A Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 8A is the Clifton Larson Allen Consultant Services Contract in the amount of $2,000. My last view of this contract was the town council wanted to send it back for a few items to Clifton Larson Allen, and they hadn't completely signed off on it. But if that's the case, we may need to defer this item. Unless my information is old, I think the last go round was our town council wanted to go back to Clifton Larson Allen on a couple of points on the contract.
Anne Marie? Is that the case? How do we know?
I believe that Murphy has to turn me in the Hain. I believe it was Attorney Rhodes did write to the board saying that he had two concerns with the contract. They were minor concerns. He actually, one of them, and I don't have the email in front of me, but one of his concerns, he was surprised that Clifton Allen wouldn't agree to it. But he said that the two minor points really didn't have a huge impact on the contract. So I think you can approve the contract. Is that correct, Karen? I know you spoke to Kevin Freitag on it.
That's correct. The CLA was not willing to make any changes. It's a standard contract that you would use for all cities and towns. I think that, I don't know if the town will use the entire $2,000 because it would really be for consulting services just for Norfolk County projects. And we've already allocated, majority of that money anyways. And I think in terms of the reporting, that when I was talking to Anne Marie about this earlier today, a lot of the reporting is sending invoices that have been paid along with GL reports to the Norfolk County for projects that have been approved. So the reporting is very minimal, but having them as a resource if questions come up, they charge around $170 to $200, depending on what representative from CLA would be assisting for questions.
So town
council. Mr. Zulus.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry,
Chair.
Mr. Wells, your hand is raised.
Oh, go ahead, Michael. You go first. I'll
I
go
was
after.
just going to say, town council wanted us to push back on two items. And I'm not comfortable moving forward. If we're getting the advice from town council to push back on two items, I'm not comfortable not pushing back on those two items.
Do you want to defer this until next meeting?
That's my preference.
Mr. Wells?
My question was to Ms. Raval. Karen, are you comfortable with it? I get with you, like CLA is in so many communities and it's standard language everywhere else, and it's only a $2,000 contract. Are you comfortable with it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable with it, but I think that it needs to be the comfort level of the select board. And when you look at the amount of work that we would actually need from them at this point is very minimal. Because a lot of the projects we're going to be receiving the money up front. And as I had mentioned, the only reporting we're required to submit to Norfolk County will be copies of invoice and GL accounts, because a lot of the hard work in terms of getting the projects into the system, identifying what area of the final rule it falls under has already been done.
Ms. Fagan?
I just found the email from Attorney Rhodes, and he did outline the two items that he was concerned about, but he said, given that the opera consulting is not a higher liability generated activity, I believe you would be all right to proceed with this agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Fagan. Any further comments or questions? Ms. Fagan, your hand is
oh, sorry, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
Mr. Zulus is raising his hand, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zulus.
Yeah, the rest of the email said he would push back on the 2 points of the 2 certifications.
Right.
So that's where I am. We get advice from town council to push back. I think we should push back.
Mr. Chair, I agree with Mr. Let's just defer it until the next meeting, and then hopefully town council will be able to respond. I mean, this is a minimal amount. It's not a big.
It says we have concurrence among the board with the nodding of heads. So this matter is deferred until our next meeting, which is scheduled for June 1st. Thank you. Ms. Fagan, may we turn to you for agenda item number 9, discussion approval fiscal year 2023 budget.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm actually going to turn this over to our Finance Director, Karen Praval, to explain. the
Thank you.
reduction.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to share my screen and go over the request that I have for a transfer of free cash out of the FY23 budget. I'm requesting a reduction in the FY23 budget of $294,589. And this is under free cash, and it's to cover 2 transfers that did not occur in FY21. One transfer was for the Special Debt Service Stabilization Fund. It's $219,589. The town of Milton has a special purpose debt stabilization legislation that allows, as debt drops off for principal and interest payments, that's based off of which is set with our tax levy for our debt exclusion. The surplus funds are then transferred into a special debt stabilization fund to be used towards a fire station. People may know of the amendment called the Hurley Amendment. And those transfers are normally done in the beginning of the fiscal year. As I was meeting with the treasurer in reconciling balances for our capital projects, when we're looking at the purchase of the land and the fire station, I realized it was an oversight that $219,589 had not been transferred. In addition to that, there was a transfer of $75,000 that was voted by town meeting to be moved to cover non-bonded capital items. That transfer was not done. So in talking with the Department of Revenue, it would be in our favor to have these done so that we don't have to go back to town meeting and make these changes later in the year. So with that adjustment, the FY23 corrections that would need to be made is that our FY23 budget of revenue would be reduced by $294,589. Those funds would then be transferred into the different established fund state that was set by legislation that had occurred earlier in previous years. The second correction with this change would be reducing our FY23 budget expenditures. What I would be requesting is a decrease in Article 4, which is the capital projects, for $231,970, which was the amount that was originally set up for the animal shelter, and reducing Article 39, which was our OPEB, which reducing it by $62,619 to allow these transfers to take place.
Thank you, Ms.
Does
Praval.
anybody have any questions?
Floor is open. Any further comment, Ms. Fagan?
No, as Karen spoke earlier, these 2 transfers were not done at the end of fiscal 21. And that was, as you know, at the time when we had an interim, and there was a lot of change going on the town side. So it was good that we caught it now. And as Ms. Praval said, before town meeting, so that we can make the reductions in articles now, and we won't have to have a fall town meeting in order to do that. So as we were looking at the budget, we both thought that the best way to make this reduction was to reduce the $231,000 that we had originally requested for the animal shelter, and then to reduce the appropriation for OPEB. If you remember, we had $100,000. I had requested $100,000 for the OPEB for fiscal 23. Normally, you only were appropriating $10,000, so we felt comfortable reducing that, because reducing it by the $62,000 still leaves $37,000. that we will appropriate in OPEB, which is higher than the 10,000 that you normally put in there. So I'm comfortable with these two reductions in budget. And we need to have the board approve these reductions, and then we have to go to the warrant committee and have them revote these two articles as well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Wells.
so I'm gonna make a motion requesting a reduction of $294,589 from the FY '23 available funds under free cash to cover FY '21 transfers into the following funds: Special Debt Service Stabilization Fund, $219,589, and Capital Projects Fund, $75,000.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Is there a second?
So I made the motion.
A second. I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Mr. Zulus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So how does this affect the animal shelter plans that the new animal shelter plans that we were embarking on?
We still have the 700,000 under the capital article that will be bonded.
So instead of 900,000, we're back to the 700,000.
Exactly, we're back to the 700. And if I can make a friendly amendment to your motion, Mr. Wells, what we have to do is we have to approve the reduction in Article 4 and Article, Karen, can you move your sheet down so I know what this, Article 39. Those are the two articles that we have to reduce the budget for. The capital stabilization and the debt service stabilization on the top of Karen's presentation here, those were fiscal 21 appropriations, and those just have to get transferred in out of general fund into those special purpose funds. So the board needs to vote tonight the recommendation that we're putting forward, which is to reduce Article 4 by $231,970 and reduce Article 39 by $62,619.
And those are the
I'd accept that,
calculations.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'd accept that. I'd accept that, Mr. Chair. If Lynn, you would note that in my motion.
Thank you. Acceptable to the second, Ms. Bradley?
I would second it.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Sorry, I
Mr.
had to
Zulus?
find my mute. Sorry.
So I'd just like to get a sense of what, so we had 900,000 or thereabouts appropriated for the animal shelter, and now it's going to be 700,000. So presumably there was a plan, although nascent, but there was a plan for that 900,000. So I'm wondering if does someone know what effect reducing that from 900,000 to 700,000 may have on those plans for the next year?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Wells.
So I did have conversation with the OPM, and when it was at 700, he was comfortable with the 700,000. I think the 931 gave them actually a little ceiling, but I'm comfortable they should be able to do this with $700,000 based on what I've heard from them.
And that was my understanding with respect to the monies above the 700,000 as well. Thank you, Mr. Wells. Ms. Fagan, did you wish to say something? Did I see your hand, or are you all set? You're all set?
Mr. Wells handled it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion. It has been seconded. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, by roll, Mr. Zulus.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just one more question before we take the roll. I was wondering if the town administrator had considered a mix with the Affordable Housing Trust and maybe limiting that as opposed to taking it all out of OPEB.
The board could do that if it so chose to do that, Mr. Zulus. I just felt that like to keep the affordable housing number there, because I do think affordable housing in the town of Milton is really important. And I felt that with the OPEB that we have only been funding the 10,000 each year, and that we're still going to fund 37,000. So that was my thought behind that. But it's up to the board if you would rather, it's my recommendation.
Right.
Fair enough.
Thank
I'm
you.
ready to vote. I'm ready to vote.
Thank you, Madam Fay. And thank you, Mr. Zulus. The roll call, Mr. Zulus.
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
and Mr. Doyle, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do
Anything
we need a
further?
second?
We'll go to agenda item number 10.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order. Is Ms. Praval still with us?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
no, she's-
On this item? You with us on this one as well, Karen?
Yes.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
still
Chair.
here, yes.
Okay, that's all I want to be sure of.
And this was hard work. I spent a lot of time with Ms. Megan and appreciate the work that she and Karen did on this. It's never easy when these adjustments have to be made, but people worked very, very constructively and diligently. Item number 10, discussion, update, and approval town meeting articles. Article 34, possible amendments to change of use and home rule petition, town-owned land at Carl Road and Blue Hill Parkway. Mr. Zulus, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a follow-up from our conversation last week. I'm not sure if the members want to have the proposed amendments and the new plot plan published on the, or shared on the screen, or if we're good. Maybe we'll go, and if someone wants to see if they can ask. The purpose of the amendments was to clarify a couple of points that have been raised by the warrant committee. Number one being that this would only be used, this land would only be used for school purposes. Number two, that in the event that funding wasn't appropriated, that everything would revert back to the way it was. And so those changes have been amended, those amendments have been made. And then the final change was something that came from discussions with one of the proponents of conservation, I guess you would call them, in town, that we seek to put a buffer at the front of the property, conservation buffer. And so that change has been made, a 50-foot conservation buffer at the front of the property along Blue Hills Parkway, so that the total buffer is 100 feet. The 50-foot buffer along with the 50-foot zoning bylaw buffer, and then along the boundary of Home Inc., there was also a 50-foot zoning buffer. So the school building committee a week ago Monday night recommended that the board support these amendments and propose these amendments for town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Zulus. Any comments? We have a motion to this effect.
Mr. Chair, just a question.
Mr. Wells, please.
So I wasn't here last week, as you know, so I'm not sure how this originated, but so this is a 100-foot buffer along the parkway, but only a 50-foot buffer between Pine Tree Brook and what would become the future site of a town school. Is that correct?
Well,
I know the
100 foot from the boundary. And so the effect of the 100 foot on the front and the 50 foot on the side is to take the total acreage down from about 6.88 to about 5.4, so less than 5.5. So if we try to, and it's quite a large boundary along Home Inc. So if we went back further on the Home Inc. side, there wouldn't be a space to put in a school. It would be squeezed as it is, but according to the school building committees, work with DRA, work with the architects on this, but the school building committee thought it was something that should be done, that would improve the plan going forward. But the short answer, Richard, is if we did it all along Home Inc. as well, it wouldn't give us enough space.
Thank you, Mr. Zulus. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Ms. Musto, has her hand up. Thank you.
Okay,
Roxanne.
thank you.
You're right. You're right.
Okay, so I just had a couple of questions. So I want to just clarify. So the buffer is 100 feet along Blue Hills Parkway and 50 along near Home Inc.
Mhm.
Okay, and my question is, could they have done a little bit better in situating this, looking at the area? I think 50 feet for a large building is really very close to homes. That's one concern I have. I mean, I think it's great that they've added, some of a buffer in the front. And if it's a total of, 100, I understand. 150, of course, would always be better. But I think 50 on the back end of Home Inc. is a concern. And the other thing I guess I have, obviously I got this last week, so I've been looking at it since last week a little bit more. The other concern I would like to talk about is, first of all, with changing that, did conservation weigh in on that change? Was my one point. My second point is, I would like to see some kind of provision in there in terms of this article that if the permits weren't, that nothing would be done in terms of site work on that site, any trees being taken down or any site work until there were permits. Because that is a concern that, maybe they'll do some preliminary site work on the property and then, they don't have all the permits in hand. So that would be something to help protect it staying sort of as conservation for right now until the permits were in hand. I think those two things are pretty important. Thank you.
Second hand is from Ms. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to answer, Ms. Musto?
Yeah, I mean, I can offer a couple of things. One is if you look at the plan that DRA put together, it wouldn't be 50 feet from a building. It would be 50, so it's 50 feet from the boundary, right? From the Home Inc. boundary to the boundary where the school goes. And the conception isn't to have the building right there. The conception is to have fields there and I think parking along the side. So it wouldn't be a building right up to the 50 feet, according to the current construct, right? And then in terms of the permits, I'm not sure that that's something that we could put into this home rule petition, but it's certainly something that the school building committee could agree to as the process goes on. I don't think there's anyone that would disagree with that. And certainly this board and the appropriating authority, which is town meeting, if there are funds appropriated, right? No trees are going to come down until there's money to take the trees down, right? So a condition of the appropriation could be no trees come down. This money's not used to take trees down until the permits are all in place. So I think that's probably where that would go because this article won't allow any trees to come down because there's no money, right? All this does is provide for the land swap, right? To take us to the next step in the process.
Could we also have a try tag on that as far as, wording and things like that, if that's something that is possible, to add into this? I don't see that he's on the meeting tonight, unfortunately. I would ask him directly,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add, Ms. Musto, as Mr. Zula said, this comes from the school building committee. I know that the chair of the Conservation Commission is aware of it. To the best of my knowledge, the Conservation Commission would not have another role for what has been proposed until such time as a construction plan is submitted. And then there would have to be filed notices of intent with respect to matters that were within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission based upon conservation delineations of the site. Ms. Bradley, and then Mr. Wells. Ms. Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's a couple things I wanted to say. So first of all, Mr. Zulus, if I'm reading all of this correctly, there's also that amazing clause that I spoke about 2 weeks ago, where if all of this falls apart with the funding from the state and everything else, we all revert back to where we were. Is that correct? That still stands?
Yes, that was one of the
Okay.
intentions here. And I will add
Right.
that this has all been vetted by town council.
Right. So that in and of itself is a feat, because writing something like that into a home rule petition, as somebody who has worked on the state level for many years, that is something that is not done normally. So normally when something like this happens, we don't revert back if you don't get the funding. So this is an anomaly that we are hoping will make this better for the people that are concerned. The next thing I want to say is that I just converted feet to yards, which I don't know if anybody else has done that on this meeting. So 100 feet are 33 yards. So if you look at a football field, that person needs to make 3 first downs before they can even get to our school. So let's think about that and think about how we watch football every Sunday, because getting to this point of that person being impacted by 3 first downs is pretty unusual. I live right behind Kelly Field, and I've got the tennis courts less than 10 feet, probably less than 5 feet from my backyard. And I hear them all the time, and it's totally fine. So when I think about 3 first downs, I am not as concerned about this. The fact that the school committee or the school building committee and the conservation committee were on board to give us 100 feet, which if you do that, it's even bigger with your feet to yards. It's amazing to me that we're going to have that wonderful walkway at the beginning of our school and allow our families to walk into that space. I walked there last week. You can't walk in it. You cannot walk into this space. It is overgrown. There are ticks everywhere. There are bugs everywhere. You cannot get in there. So the fact of the matter that I can walk through those stone pillars that I see all the time, because I live right around the corner, FYI, that is amazing to me. And so I just want to say kudos to the school building committee, kudos to those who wrote this amendment. I am in awe of the drafting. So thank you, and I will 100% support this.
Mr. Wells.
Recommending Ms. Bradley for a job at ESPN. 3 first downs. So just one question on the point that Ms. Bradley brought up and the point that Mr. Zulis brought up. Should this fail, this reverts back to conservation land. Is that forthwith? Like immediately just goes back to what it is today? Or
So
I don't want, I don't want to develop a showing up 6 weeks later looking to.
There's no way a developer could do this. I mean, even there's no way to develop, because it's sent to us only for school purposes. And then if it reverts back, you'd have to go through the procedure, right? To put the land back in, you'd have to get the votes of the Conservation Commission.
Reverse of what we've done so far.
So that language provides the reverse, right? So the language says if there's no appropriation of funding on or before June 30th, 2027, effectively everything goes back to the way it was, right? And that's the intention, and that's the procedure that we'd have to go through to make that happen. And then I would only say with respect to the buffers, I wish we had
Sean
O'Rourke's presentation, because what it shows is 2 things. One is when the intention or the thought, right? It's a long process. We'll see where we get there. But the thought is you keep the 2 pillars and you have a walking path going through the woods up to the school. And then similarly on the Home Inc. side, because you've got that buffer, those trees are, a lot of those trees are going to stay there. So any view from Home Inc., the plan is really going to be interrupted or separate from the parcel where the school is. So that's the hope and that's the intention and that's the effort here to really, make it something that is a win-win for everyone here.
Thank you, Ms. DeZulis. Ms. Musto, your hand is raised.
Sure, just a couple of quick follow-up questions. So on the Home Inc. side, it's 50 feet from the corner of the lot. And where they're placing the building is how far from that?
So the building is just a concept right now. There's no, it's not in place. And that's subject to
Right.
discussion with the neighbors, right? We were having a lot of discussions back in March with Home Inc. and they had a list of items that we were working with them on for how it would look ultimately, right? So, but the concept drawing that we've seen most recently has a parking lot and then the school. And then up on the other part of the border, it has a field, right? So it doesn't have the school building. But again, that's just a concept because it's very early in the process. So it's really subject to the neighborhood's input, everyone's input to make it happen in a way that is beneficial for everyone. So I can tell you as one member of the school building committee, I have no interest in having the building right up to the boundary of Home Inc. And that's what drove us to say, hey, look, let's make sure we have something about a buffer all along that boundary, right? And if we can make it more, when we get into the design with the real design with the designers, that would be great, right? Maybe we can make it more, but that's all that's in the zoning right now. And there was a concern since we're going down from 6.8 acreage to 5.4 that we're really squeezing it tight as it is.
I guess my follow-up question would be is, in this, I didn't see that it even says 50 for the Home Inc. border. So I'm concerned because there's nothing in this language that says, about any kind of border along the Home Inc. side. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that's obviously valid, and I'm sure that was considered, but it's not in writing. That's not in writing. So I'm a little troubled by that because it's not in writing. And I think that, if it's not in writing, sometimes it doesn't matter in the end. So I hear that they'll make every attempt, but what if that doesn't happen?
So it is in writing.
But in the amendment that we're voting on today, it's not in here.
Well, no, if I may, it is in writing. It's in the zoning bylaws. It's in the zoning bylaws of the town. So you can't do it other than that way, right? It's in the zoning bylaws of the town. And the draft of this originally, we had it. We put that in and town council said, well, no, it's in the zoning bylaws. So it's really not appropriate to include in this home rule petition. So it is in writing in the respect that it's in the zoning bylaws of the town.
I understand that, but however, this is potentially a large building, right? So there are certain setbacks and things like that you have to do for your home and for buildings. But in some of our larger institutions, we often push them back a little bit more from neighbors. And so that's what my concern is here. And I know we're only voting today on the amendment. We're not voting on the whole article. I understand that. And then I guess my other question, just to go back to, is there a way that we could find out from town council if we can put something in here that would protect any kind of site work? Because sometimes people, might have partial permits, and they'll go in and they'll do some preliminary site work. And then maybe they don't get the full permits that they need, or they need to adjust things and move things, and you've already destroyed some of this forested area. Just a question.
The only thing I'd say is if that's going to be done, someone's going to pay for it, right? It's got to be appropriated by town meeting. And so that's a condition that town meeting could put on that appropriation, right? This amendment doesn't allow any site work, there's no money for it. So it seems to me would probably be the better place to put it. I mean, we can ask town council, but my guess is that he'll probably say that should come in an appropriation later in the process rather than putting it in the home rule petition.
Thank you. Ms. Bradley, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much. It seems to me that there's no motion on the table. Is that correct?
The motion has not been made yet, but there is a motion
Great.
for us.
So So I would like to just say, there's a lot of steps in this process, and I'm going to move the first step. I'm going to move to approve the new amendment relative to the town meeting Article 34, change of use and home rule petition, town-owned land at Guile Road and Blue Hills Parkway. Good God. The new language includes a 50-foot strip of land that would run along the entire westerly edge of Blue Hills Parkway and be under the care and control of the Conservation Commission, and further to authorize the town of Milton to use said land solely for school purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Is there a second? I will second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the chair will take the roll. On the motion made and seconded, Mr. Zulus,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
May I make a point before I vote, Mr. Chair?
certainly Mr. Wells.
So I want to say, just, look, I get how critical this is for the schools, and this has weighed heavily on me. And I go back to when I don't think anyone here was on this, I was not on the board when this occurred, we took the 34 acres for Pulte up off of what is now Woodlot Drive. That was a beautiful and majestic piece of the town that is now gone, leveled. And every time that we do something like this, you just think about, is there another opportunity? And so I'm going to vote yes, but I really implore, because I think this is going to be an uphill battle at town meeting, I truly do, that continue to look at any other possible, people throw out things like this land or that. I think that we continue to look at this, because once we level this, and as much as, and I've heard Mr. Zulus many times, as much as I understand, and including my friends on the school committee, how much we need to build the school. Once we level this parcel of conservation land, as you know, Mr. Doyle, it's gone forever. There's no taking it back. So given that, with heavy heart, I am voting yes.
Thank you, Mr. Wells, and for your commentary. Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
I'm going to abstain. I don't feel that we've adequately addressed the concerns that I have, that I've heard from people. So I'm going to abstain at this point, and hope to learn more between now and town meeting.
thank you, Ms. Musto. And Mr. Doyle, yes. Thank you for a very rich discussion of this, and an important discussion, and one which will contribute to further discussions, including the discussions that will take place at town meeting in preparation for them. Our next item is item number 11, discussion, review, and potentially approve contract in the amount of $10,400 between CCA Geo Environmental Incorporated in the town of Milton for hydrology and hydraulic consultation recommended by the Milton Conservation Commission for the 40B project proposed for 582 Blue Hill Avenue. You may recall that this was deferred from last week to this week. We came right under the wire, as you saw, with the transmission of the final contract. I read that contract just before I sent it to you. It is signed by town council. The work is important. It relates to stormwater infiltration and its intersection with groundwater. And the recommendation came from the Conservation Commission based upon its review and discussions with residents in the area. The check has been received and deposited by the town treasurer, is noted in the cover sheet, and I have a copy of the check in my hand, but not the original check. So,
Mr. Chair, you're looking for a motion?
There's a motion on the table. That's right, Mr. Wells.
So I'll make a motion to approve this contract in the amount of $10,400.
I'll second
Who's
that.
second? Mr. Wells made the motion. Ms. Musto seconded.
Yep.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the roll call, Anne Marie Fagan. You're on mute, Anne Marie.
I can make a friendly amendment that the board also authorize
Yes.
the administrator to sign
I'll
the contract.
accept, I'll accept that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Whatever Anne Marie wants.
Excellent. With that amendment, which has been approved by the motion maker in the second, roll call, Mr. Zulus,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle, yes. Thank you. Perfect timing. We now are on item number 12, update approval institutional network request for proposed consultant contract. Mr. Zulus. You're on mute, Mike.
Yep, no, am I back? I think I'm back.
You're back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This, we're gonna have to defer because the consultant that we'd hoped had to step back for unrelated reasons. So we have to, if we're gonna go with a consultant, we have to get another one. So we'll have to defer on this item. So I'll have to defer on this item.
I'm sorry, I missed that last point.
So we'll have to defer on this item
Correct. Okay,
because there is no consultant at this point.
that's fine. So we'll defer that hopefully to our June 1 meeting. Item number 13, Mr. Zulus.
So this is the request for proposal for which the consultant would consult with us. And we just heard today from town council that because this project is of a certain number in terms of appropriation, and it involves design and construction, that the design should be separate from the construction. So we've asked town council to begin to put together an RFP solely for the design. So we'll have to defer on this item as well.
Thank you, Mr. Zulus. Item number 15, Milton Dog Warrant. Anne Marie, I know that we don't need this item. Did you want to
Mr.
comment
Chairman.
accordingly?
Yes, this item, I apologize, was put on the agenda inadvertently. With the strong town administrator legislation, the board no longer has to approve the dog warrant for the police chief. That now falls under your town administrator's role.
Thank you, Ms. Fagan. We now move to item number 15, discussion approval, select board member committees, appointments, reappointments. The first item is rescinding of select board appointment. This was made last week to the payment in lieu of taxes committee of the pilot program due to a perceived conflict of interest that was brought to our attention. So I would entertain a motion to rescind that.
Mr. Chair, I would like more information about why it needs to be rescinded.
Ms. Musto,
I'm
happy to speak to that.
thank
I
you.
had
I don't
offered,
have any information.
sure, I had offered to be on that, and I know that we look at the pilot funds from the different nonprofits in town, and I work in the hospital system, so I think that's a conflict for me. And I didn't want it to be a
thank you.
potential conflict, so that's why. Thank
And
you.
that's appreciated. Thank you very much, Ms. Musto, and Ms. Bradley, thank you for the question, for further clarification. Any further questions?
No, it
Is
just
there-
seems like there's a lot of conflicts, but
Right.
thank you.
Excuse me?
Mr. Zulus?
I'll move to, I wish there were a better word than rescind, but I'll move to rescind the appointment from the payment in lieu of taxes committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I'll
take
second it if that's what she wants. Does she want that?
I'm the one who brought it forward, so
Yes.
I was
Oh,
the one.
okay.
Nobody asked me, I brought it forward. I was the one who brought it to Arthur's attention. We had nobody volunteering for that committee, and I said, sure, I will do that. And then I thought about it after the fact, and I said, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. And that's when I brought it to Arthur's attention. I sent him a note, actually. We talked about that, so it was me who brought it forward, actually.
Okay, I don't want to second something that Roxanne doesn't want, but she wants this, so I'll second it.
Thank you. No further comment. And Roxanne, with great appreciation, she did. We had a conversation about it at Crane Field on Sunday, and we appreciate the position you're taking. So on the motion, which has been seconded, Mr. Zulus,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto.
I don't know.
Okay, and Mr. Doyle, yes. And Mr. Zulus, or whoever raised the question about rescind, I don't like that either. I tried to use the word vacate, which was.
That probably would have been better.
Right.
Why don't we
And
take
this-
that as a friendly, why don't we ask Lynn to insert the word vacate instead of rescind?
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Wells. And B, 15B, committee appointments. Appointment to the Finance Committee. We deferred these appointments until this week. Is there a motion to make appointments to the Finance Committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Wells?
so I just, are you, I know you sit on it now in your chair, so I just want to ask you before I make a motion, are you willing to stay on finance? Is that your wish to remain on finance even though you're chair? I just need a yes or no.
I would stay on this year only, assuming I might continue in the future, which is an unknown. For continuity purposes with the issues that we've been working on and will continue to work on over the course of the next year.
I'll make a motion to appoint the chair, Mr. Doyle, to reappoint the chair, Mr. Doyle, to the Finance Committee.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Wells, I'm sorry, Mr. Zulus,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes,
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
and
except we're supposed to appoint two. So I'm having some trouble here with what
I'll
is
abstain.
written.
So I just did them,
Sorry.
I just did them one, I just did them one at a time. Sorry, I just did them.
Okay, so last week we were doing them together, so I'm like just a
Okay.
little confused. I'm
All
wicked
right,
sorry, y'all.
No, I
Mr. Wells.
apologize.
Okay. Mr. Wells chose to break out. We are voting for two positions.
Okay, so given that, my second question, Mr. Zulus, are you wishing to remain on it as well?
I'm willing to do it.
What kind of answer is that?
Yes, I'm wishing, I'm hoping, I'm desiring, yes. Yes.
So I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to reappoint Mr. Zulus to the Finance Committee.
So maybe someone wants to modify the motion along the lines of Ms. Bradley's suggestion, since it is now not broken apart in some respects. We have two nominations or two names on the floor. Would that be appropriate?
I'll do whatever you want to do, Mr. Chair.
So the motion would read, move to appoint Mr. Zulus and Mr. Doyle to the Finance Committee. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second for Roxanne. Moved and seconded. Any comment? Any further comment? Roll call vote, Mr. Zulus.
Yes.
No, you can't vote on yourself.
Yeah.
You can't vote on
Oh,
yourself.
I can, all right, so, all
right.
right, I'll wait, I'll abstain, I'll wait and see if I need.
So you
to.
can vote for Arthur.
Yes.
Right.
I can vote for myself too if I want, but
All right.
anyway.
Broken apart, it would have been easier in that respect.
That's kind of why I did it, but okay.
Okay.
Mr. Wells, yes.
Okay, Ms. Bradley,
Yep.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
and I'll abstain, but I'd be willing
Give me an
to.
abstain, give me an abstain too.
Thank you.
I should have taken tonight off.
No, we're not doing badly by the clock, Mr. Wells. It's only
And I'm
9:01.
watching, I'm watching, Mr. Chair.
You should have been here last week.
I heard.
We have an appointment to the Milton Landing Committee.
Mr. Chair, if I may for a minute. So I know that this calls for 2 members and I'm more than willing to, I would hope to stay on this committee. This has been something that I actually came to the board, we created, and we're at the level now where we've received $75,000 to do the study. What we hope to be a major dredging project for the city of Boston and the city of Quincy next year. We're very close on the negotiations between 88 WAF and ourselves over the parcel 41. If a second member would like to join this committee, I'm fine with that. If not, I don't know how many committees you voted last week. As you know, Ms. Conlon was on it for the first year and stepped away, I think, a year and a half ago, but I'm more than fine with that. But if I don't want to give anyone any more work than they need, but I would like to remain on this, as this is something a bus I've been driving now for 5 years.
Yeah, Mr. Wallace points out a good point, and that is that last year 2 members of the select board were appointed. One vacated their position because of scheduling conflicts. So we have the option in this case of appointing 2 people to the Milton Landing Committee. Ms. Bradley, your hand is raised and you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So after last week's discussion, there was banter about between myself and you and Mr. Zulus about the Finance Committee. So I had kind of put that in my wheelhouse. And since that's not in my wheelhouse any longer, which if you go back, you can see that banter, I would like to join the Milton Landing Committee and work on that with my connections within the city of Boston with Mr. Wells.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Bradley. Ms. Musto, you were recognized.
Hi, I had also sent back a while ago, had sent a note that I was interested in that when I thought it was 2 people. And then this week I saw that it looked like it was only 1. So, you know, I had been interested in that too. But
So we have three expressions of interest in the position. Do we have a motion? We can't have 3 appointees, unfortunately.
You know, I mean, it's a waste of time to have, I mean, this is.
I can step down. I mean, if, you know, I don't know. I had initially put it through, I thought Richard was staying on. I think that's what we were voting on this week was him and somebody else. So I had put it in an email a while ago, but then I saw
Roxanne, you take it.
That's
You know,
fine.
you
Doesn't
take
matter.
it. No, you take it. It's all good. Go ahead.
Whatever.
Mr. Zulus, you're recognized.
No, I don't need to say anything. I was going to suggest we
Rotate
defer
it.
I was going to suggest we defer it, but then it sounds like I don't need to get in the middle of anything.
Yeah, no, Erin has recused herself. And so y'all go ahead.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Richard Wells and Roxanne Musto to the Milton Landing Committee.
Is there a second to the motion?
I think you might have to, I'm not going to second on myself, Mr. Chair.
I'll second then. I'll do a roll, and again, with gratitude to everybody involved. Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
I'll defer, I'll abstain, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto, you'll abstain? And Mr. Doyle, yes. Thank you, one and all. Now we turn to, or return to the payment in lieu of taxes.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Wells.
So I just, you know, Mr. Zulus did a lot on this committee 3 years ago, Michael, 4 years ago now. It's going by. It's like, as the followed by Mr. Farrington. I mean, things have changed when I arrived here 6 years ago, there was only one nonprofit that was paying anything at all into pilot, and now we have two. To Ms. Musto's point, I think she made and I don't want to target anyone, but I could see why she recused herself, because the one area that does concern me is the dialogue with BID Milton, is that in spite of all the efforts for every member on this board, to include members that are no longer on this board and present members on this board, we've never been able to bring them to the table. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why pilot, we need to stay on top of this. Because as you've articulated many times, Mr. Zulus, this is an important issue for our community. Nobody's saying anything. Look at the blank screen. Just, I know, like, everybody has.
Is that a motion, Mr. Wells?
No, I don't know. Everybody has so much in their plate, but it is important. I think if we let it go, it goes forever, and then we never get back to them. That's my one fear. And it kind of did take a back seat in COVID. It just did, compared to where you were 3 years ago, Michael. Much different.
Well, yes, but I do have to say, we've seen increases.
I agree. I give you that. But in one area we haven't. What do you think? Do you think we should not appoint it? Do you think we should abandon it? I
think we have a committee, and the committee should continue its work. I don't think the work is, we have a policy, and the charge of the committee is to take steps to act in accordance with the policy. And I think we need a separate committee to try to make sure that the policy is because right now the nonprofits don't act in accordance with the policy.
I agree.
And so I think there is a reason for the committee to stay in place.
One final question, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Zulus, was when it was you, was it you and Mike Dennehy together, or was it?
So originally the committee, yes, the town administrator was on it. I was on it before I was on the board. And then I think I was on it for a year after I was on the board with Matt Keswick and
that's right.
Mr. Henderson, the assessor. And then Tony Farrington took it over. Might have been the first year or second year. Maybe the first or second year. And then last year it was Katie.
By herself or with those, is there anyone else on the committee now?
Yes, but I don't have the names. They were last year, but I don't know. As I sit here, I'm not sure if Matt Keswick was on it for quite a while. I'm not sure if he still is.
Okay.
Pardon me, he was one of the residents. But as I sit here, I don't know the names of everyone who's on it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, and then I'd like to put something on the table for consideration, Mr. Wells.
Oh, go ahead. You go, because yours, I was going to do the same, but I'll be want to listen to yours first.
The people's agendas are very tight, and Mike has been down this road a number of times. I would be willing to move in this direction if it were the will of the other members of the board, but not to also serve simultaneously on the finance committee. I think Mr. Zulus's continuation there is very, very strong. I'd open that for your thoughts.
So you'd be willing to take over pilot and not serve on the finance committee? Is that what you're saying?
If the board wanted me to do that, but yes.
So my only
I want the board to have its people where the board needs to have their resources to do the best job for the community. Mr. Zulus?
So if that's the case, Mr. Chair, I think the question is, would Aaron be willing to serve on the finance committee?
So I'll make a motion to if you want to do that, Mr. Chair, if I'm not even going to let her answer, I'll make a motion to appoint Aaron Bradley to the Finance Committee and then also to appoint you to the Pilot Committee. Nobody's saying anything. I'm just looking at blank screens here.
Is
You
there
want
a
a
second?
Want to second that, Mr. Zulus?
I will second.
Wait a
Any
minute.
discussion, any further discussion?
Aaron,
Yes,
is that okay with, is
I
that
have
okay
a
with you?
discussion. Well, I have a discussion. Are we gonna meet at 7 AM on the Finance Committee, Mr. Zulus? Because that's cuckoo.
I was actually thinking 6:30 this year, but
Oh, great. Yeah, let's just do that and really get my kids going. I love that. They're gonna laugh if you think you can get me up at 6:30.
But then we're done before we have to get them off to school.
Right. My kids are older.
Oh yeah, I guess that's right.
Can we do 8 AM?
No, I'm sorry. Just to be serious.
I mean, seriously.
The 7 a.m. meetings were to accommodate the finance chair of the school
committee.
finance subcommittee.
Yeah, and I brought that up last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we met last time. That's my concern.
I have no interest in the 7 a.m. meeting. And not that I would be the one to decide, but I have no interest in that.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, I don't want to take your place. I feel weird. I feel like this whole thing is weird. And I'm just going to call a spade because that's who I am. It feels weird to me. And I don't want to do something because people had to shift. I just feel like this is weird. And is it something that is okay? Because I've been saying this for weeks. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. And I can't do this without your blessing, Mr. Chair.
I don't take it as being toe stepping at all. And I take it that the pilot would not be something that would be of interest to you.
No, it would not in any way, shape, or form, because I would be an angry elf and not the person you want on your pilot committee. Honestly, you wouldn't want me on there.
Well, maybe we would. Maybe we would. I think that would be so bad right now. Just a point. Is
please.
To Ms. Bradley's point, some things here are weird. It's just how it is. I mean, and especially we're a new board. It takes, 3 weeks ago we saw Mrs. Collins and Ms. Connor leave, and it was, believe me, it was uncomfortable for me when I got here. And we just make it work. It's don't feel weird, Aaron. Really, it's just sometimes you're trying to cover so, as I'm sure you're seeing so quickly, we're trying to cover so much here. It's like mayonnaise on I don't want to say a turkey sandwich. I don't know, like we're trying to cover all four corners of the bread. It's hard, and so
on a football field.
I agree, and I thank the chair for doing that. But my one point before we do take this vote is this can't be you by yourself, Mr. Doyle. We have to have it has to be a committee going with you.
Yes, I concur. And I would look forward very much to that. And I also realize that I can use my experience on the corporate side when finance matters come to the full board. So it's not like I'm moving out of the picture entirely, just like we all will be using our backgrounds and our skills when they come out of the finance committee to the full board for consideration. Aaron's willing to step up to the bat on that. Take a lot of time. Won't be at 7 a.m. in the morning. That was beyond our control. We made an accommodation, as Mike said. So based on this discussion, Mr. Wells, would you be willing to amend your motion to the extent that it would call for me to vacate the appointment that was made previously and for Mr. Zulus and Ms. Bradley to be appointed to the Finance Committee and Mr. Doyle to the Pilot Committee?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Roxanne. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Mr. Zulus,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley.
I think I have to abstain, but I'd say
That's
yes.
right. That's right. Well,
Welcome to weirdness, Erin.
right.
I
Maybe I
know,
should
right?
have.
I'm like holding back tears.
Ms.
It's really
Musto.
hard for me.
Yes, yes.
Okay, we have enough votes. So, yes, if it had been broken apart, it would make it easy. Aaron, thank you for raising that point. But we have accomplished the goal. We have our committees established. And Godspeed to all of us in our committees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for doing that.
Well,
You showed a lot of leadership right then and there,
thank
which
you.
doesn't surprise me at all.
Nobody does it alone. Now at this particular
Thank you,
point in
Mr.
time,
Chair. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. This is really difficult and it's not something I'm used to, so thank you, Mr. Chair.
well, good things oftentimes are never easy, and difficult things are oftentimes good. So
Don't let the angry elf go away because he may need it sometimes. And you better
yeah, I
be
may
ready to
want
be
to
there like-
borrow your
you
elf,
better-
Aaron.
Oh, I got your back, Mr. Chair. Don't you worry. I got your back with anybody. They come at
Thank
you,
you.
I got you.
Item number 16, Town Administrator's Report, please.
Yes,
Ms.
Mr.
Fagan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to make the announcement regarding Memorial Day ceremonies this year. The Memorial Day observation will be held on Monday, May 30th. The ceremonies will begin on the town green at 10:30 a.m. with the raising of the flag and the placement of the wreath at the town's war memorial by the local veterans. Then the main ceremony will begin at Milton Cemetery at 11 a.m. Our featured speaker this year will be Captain Mary Jo O'Dwyer, Major. And we've also invited an invitation to Deputy Superintendent Pauline Wells to be involved in this year's Memorial Day observance as well.
How'd that happen?
Thank you, Ms. Fagan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Chair's report. I just have a couple of things that I'd like to put on the table for us for future meetings. You don't need to respond to them right away, but to let you know what some of my thinking is, although you're welcome to share yours at this time as well. We received the report of the Equity and Justice Committee, and my sense is they had an interest in the response from the Select Board to their report. So I would like to add that to a future agenda, make sure that our two new members have that report if they haven't received it already, enough time to digest it and to participate fully in any responses from the Select Board to the Equity and Justice Committee report. We have the sign-free corridor on a sidebar. We want to bring that back. We'll follow up with Town Council, have that for a future agenda item. And that will give us an opportunity to update Erin and Roxanne on what took place with respect to Granite Avenue and the recommendation to have a sign-free corridor, which Milton is entitled to establish. We have the Kidder Library issue at hand for resolution. We have the Milton Arts Center for resolution. Appraisals on Kidder are now in hand, are they not, Mr. Zulus?
I think so.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chair, it is.
So we've made forward momentum on that, and thanks to you and others that have made that come to this point. And then there's my observation that we have the important Governor Stoughton trust responsibility. We are the trustees of that instrument and that responsibility. The pattern has generally been for it to be discussed in executive session at the end of a long Select Board meeting. Sometimes those meetings with that on the agenda really don't end until 11 or 11:30. And what I'd like to suggest is that at some point in time, we just might have a special meeting solely on the Governor Stoughton Trust, bring everybody up to speed in terms of that responsibility and start to frame out what it is that the select board might like to envision for future work under its responsibilities as trustees. I should have said the select board, what the trustees would like to envision as their vision for the trust in the future. So just sharing some thoughts, and I'd welcome any feedback. You can do that now, or you can send me a note or whatever it is. I'd welcome it anytime. Thank you for listening. Our future, I have no public comment. I'm sorry, members' reports. Does any member have a committee report from the newly established committee assignments? Hearing none, and rightfully so. Well, I have no public comment reports since we didn't have a public comment this evening. I want to go to the attendees list, if I may, for just a minute, because there was one person who had indicated they wanted to make public comment. I give them that opportunity with the indulgence of the board, but they are not in the attendees. Future agenda item dates, items and dates. We have our June 1st meeting. And then we have our 6:30 p.m. select board meetings consonant with the town meeting, June 6th, June 7th, June 9th, June 13th, June 14th.
Voting on 3 days. I'm betting on 3 days. Nice. Mr. Chair, point of order.
Mr. Wells. Yes, Mr. Wells.
Madam Town Administrator, she slipped away before I was able to grab her tonight, but I believe that Ms. Praval will be leaving us before this board meets again. And I think it would be remiss of us to not thank her for the work she has done. I know she's only been with us for a short time, but Karen dove in neck first up to her chin, as you witnessed, Anne Marie, at the time since you've come back here. And, you know, she was a great find. One of the things I always said about Mr. Dennehy, he's better than Bill Belichick in scouting talent and bringing people here. I will truly, truly, truly miss Karen and all that she brought to that office into, you know, there've been discussions, as many of us know, for years over finance director and the town accountant. And Karen was the first one to go into that role as a finance director, coming from a city background, both Cambridge and Brockton, a town. This was her first time ever, and town government is much different than city government. And I just really want to thank her for everything that she did in such a short period of time. This is a huge, huge void for us to fill in her leaving. And I would be remiss in not thanking her. She, great asset for this community, and just a great person overall. If you got to know her like I did in the past year, that just a terrific talent and a great lady. And good luck to the city of Brockton, because our loss is becoming their gain.
For now.
For now.
Yes.
Mr. Wells, very thoughtful. And would you like to convert your comments into a motion of appreciation?
I would be glad to do that. I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to thank Karen Praval for her excellent work, her effort, her tenacity, her skill, and her diligence in the time that she has served as the finance director for the town of Milton. I hope you wrote that all right, Len.
Well spoken. Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Musto. Roll call, Mr. Sillis.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Absolutely.
Ms. Bradley.
Yes, but I'm going to take a page from Mr. Wells and just say a little piece for 1 second. I had the pleasure of not only hearing Ms. Praval over the past year in front of the warrant committee, but meeting with her one-on-one recently. And she has such innovative ideas for our town that I cannot wait to read her memo that she promises me she's going to get us. Anne-Marie, so don't you worry.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and I think that she has been a wonderful addition to our town and a way to move our town forward that that others don't think about. And it's that nuances of policy and the nuances of deadlines and the nuances of a love of finance. And there are so much intricacy in the way that Ms. Praval does her work that I wholeheartedly say yes to this. And thank you, Mr. Wells, for bringing it forward because she is amazing and I'm hoping to bring her back very soon.
Ms. Musto,
Well said.
Yes.
Mr. Doyle, yes. And may what we convey to her reflect the unanimous vote of the select board. And we'll take a look and see about Anne-Marie, if we may, a certificate
Yes.
that would accompany,
How
Yes.
about cash? How about cash?
so that she can hang it on her wall in Brockton and never forget where she might be coming back to.
Yes.
Any other comments? Hearing none. We now will move to go into executive session. So as chair, this will be for discussion strategy with respect to negotiations with all union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with union personnel and to adjourn following executive session. Is there a second?
Second,
Mr. Zulus,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle, yes.